Justin Clapper over here with Wrestling Travel USA, continuing our series with the participants of Mania Crawl. I'm here with Steve Tortorello with Warrior Wrestling. Steve, welcome to the show with no name.
It's an outlaw mud show. I like it.
That's what it is. And I've been watching some of my interviews back, and I want everybody to be aware that I am self-aware of the ums and ahs coming from my unprofessional interviewing skills, and I will try to minimize them. But Steve, Warrior Wrestling out of Chicago, you're the president, the owner, the CEO, the janitor. Talk to me about the history of Warrior Wrestling in Chicago. I was lucky enough to attend 2 shows. One as a fan, one we brought Alicia Atute over in December. But talk to me about Warrior Wrestling and the history.
So we started Warrior Wrestling. It really started with an idea in 2017. I wanted to be more involved in independent wrestling. I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, attending independent shows on and off for years and years. And originally I thought about starting an independent wrestling organization and trying to partner or pair with a town or municipality here in the Chicagoland area, run it at civic centers, et cetera. And my best friend, Eric Hamilton, who's my right-hand man and Warrior, he suggested, Steve, why don't you do it at the school? I'm the principal of Marian Catholic High School in Chicago Heights. And he said, Steve, do it at the school. You don't really care personally about making money about this. You just want to do it. I said, yeah. He said, do it at the school. Give all the money to the school. You've got the facility. It'll be for a great cause. It'll really be something special. And so I pitched it to my boss, Vince Kredinsky, who's the president of Marian Catholic. And a few slides into my PowerPoint presentation, he stopped me and said, done. Let's try it. Let's do it. So I really appreciate his confidence in me. And we were off to the races. So we did our first show, which at the time was just going to be a one-off. Warrior Wrestling happened in May of 2018. We brought in Alberto Del Rio, Ricardo Rodriguez, Jake Hager, Jack Swagger. We had Pentagon, Matt Seidel, Tessa Blanchard, a handful of luchadors. It was a fun event. It went really well received by the community. And then we had the discussion over the summer of 2018, well, we want to keep this going. And so in the 18-19 school year, we were off to the races with 4 more shows. We were on pace again this school year to do 4 more shows, but the last one's on permanent hiatus until we all get through the health crisis. But it's really taken off from there, and we try every show to have a combination of really big names that people really want to see and up-and-coming stars that people may not have heard of or may have heard of and never seen in person before. And we try as well to do as much of a variety as possible. We want our shows to have a little lucha libre flavor, some technical wrestling, some high-flying, some brawling, incredible women's matches. We try to really put out a smorgasbord of wrestling so that if you like wrestling, there is something for you on our show.
Oh, I can attest to that 100%, that you have the gamut. I watched some Warrior Wrestling 6. I watched some great lucha action. My favorite match was Austin Aries and Alex Shelley. And then I know I think you had Tessa in a 6-man mixed gender match that I missed because I was at the hall doing wrestling travel stuff. So I got in just for the pinfall, but it runs the gamut. Now, let me ask you, Warrior Wrestling 1, you are trying to secure talent for your show. How do you go about doing that without any background, or how did you get help, or did you have some background? How were you contacting the names that you got, because they're incredible?
Great question. Honestly, dumb luck. We reached out to a lot of people through Twitter, through emails. And, a lot of wrestlers have their booking information posted, and we just started with a lot of outreach. Hey, we're starting a new promotion in Chicago. We'd love to have you. And, we ran into many people at first who were like, we've never heard of you guys, I'm not sure, or a lot of people who didn't respond at first. But then when a few big names said yes and jumped in, all of a sudden everybody else jumped in. So the first wrestler to say yes overall was Space Monkey. So Space Monkey and the Canadian crew of Kobe Durst and Mark Wheeler and Shane Saber, they were the first guys in. Once Del Rio said that he was in, all of a sudden all of the dominoes started to fall together, because I think a lot of people wanted to be part of that show. And so it really was word of mouth. And then after the first show, we worked really hard on show 1 to try to treat everybody well, treat everybody respectfully, be a place that people would want to work again. And then thankfully that word kind of spread so that in future shows, people knew who we were, and we were hopefully well respected, and people took our calls, so to speak.
That's fantastic. My next question would be, I love your logo. I love the way you have it on your title belts. Did you have that thought of right away? Did somebody come up with it?
Great question. So we settled on the name Warrior Wrestling, and the name kind of came from just we brainstormed a bunch of names, and we thought it sounded cool. We did not want letters. We didn't want to be the Chicago South Suburban Wrestling Federation of Excellence. We wanted a thing, right? We wanted like Chikara or just one name. And so we kicked around a lot of names, and we figured, oh, Warrior Wrestling has to be in use 10 places across the country. And we really didn't see it anywhere else. So we said, all right, that's the name. And then literally our team of guys logged on to like an artwork website where artists submit various pieces of artwork. And we said, let's find the logo for Warrior Wrestling. So we narrowed it down to probably 24 warrior looking symbols or drawings or things like that. And we put them all in a Microsoft Word file. And we shared it with a bunch of friends. And we said, what should be the logo of our wrestling company? And we had friends vote and give their how clean it is. It really looks like if this were an NBA or an NHL, this could be the logo of that thing. It's very clean, very straightforward. My one rule to everybody when we were looking at logos was no blood, no skulls, no burning cities, none of these cliches that you see all over the place in wrestling promotions. We wanted it to look like a sport. So that was the logo that most people liked, and we went with it. And I like it, too, for a couple of reasons. It looks kind of like a luchador mask. It looks kind of like a Spartan helmet. The negative space at the top of it is actually a W. So if you're looking at Warrior Wrestling, it kind of creates a negative space thing there. Yeah, it just kind of fell into place. We just looked at a lot of options, and that's what we loved.
And it looks awesome on your title belt, which currently held by Brian Pillman Jr., formerly held by Brian Cage. So you have had the big names come through there. Brian Cage, obviously established with Impact. Brian Pillman killing it on the Indies. So Tessa Blanchard, as you've mentioned, great names. The other thing I wanted to point out to people was I am not just a friend and a fan and somebody that supports, but I've actually purchased a couple of the DVDs. Now they're available for streaming on High Spots and also for sale on DVD. Am I correct? How did that relationship with High Spots start?
You are correct. Actually, they reached out to us ahead of Warrior 2, which was the day after All In 2018. And I think High Spots had gotten out of the live streaming for a while, and they were looking to get back into it. And their team was going to be here in Chicago for All In and StarCast and all the things around that. And we promoted our card as heavily as we could, and somehow it came to their attention. And they reached out and said, hey, would you be interested in a partnership in us doing DVDs for you and potentially live streaming the show? And we said, yes, please. So starting with Warrior Wrestling 2, we started working with High Spots, and the guys over there are incredible. Michael, Seth, another Mike, their whole team are great, and we've had nothing but a great experience with them. And then we transitioned into working with Fight TV as well for the last few shows, where it streams live on Fight and then goes on demand on High Spots. And can't say enough good things about them. It's been a great relationship.
Okay, so now I consider you a friend in the business. So I'm going to call in a favor from you, and it doesn't have to happen right away. But I'm a big fan of physical media and maybe not streaming as much, although I will stream. You need to make a call to High Spots over the next couple of weeks and see if they can make Warrior Wrestling 6 available so I can actually rewatch the Alex Shelley and Austin Aries match that I love. So I don't know if you can make that magic happen, but I think it's been sold out. I will
send an email.
So fantastic. Yeah. So you've obviously been a fan. Talk to me. What's your earliest memories of wrestling? What were you watching when you were a kid? What got you into wrestling? If you can take me back that far.
So I'm born in '85, so I'm an '80s baby. And as a young kid, I was the Hulkamaniac, like every 5-year-old was in 1990, right? I had all 3 different versions of the Hulk Hogan action figure, the body slamming one, the punching one, and the bear hugging one. I had the plush wrestling buddies and all that. I remember Earthquake breaking Hogan's back on television and being traumatized. And then I kind of got out of it in the mid-'90s, like a lot of people did, right? People ran for the exits from wrestling in the early to mid-'90s. And so it was just not even on my radar. And I came back to it in 98 when two of my best friends, Andrew and Conrad, who were huge fans in 96, 97, 98, and I used to always debate with them and tease them about liking wrestling. We were hanging out at their house one night, and they're like, all right, stop. We're just going to show you some wrestling to shut you up to see how awesome this is. And this was late June 98. And so they put in a tape, which they taped off a pay-per-view from a week or two before of King of the Ring 98. And we watched the Mankind Undertaker Hell in a Cell match. And I'm not a fan of excessive violence. I'm not a fan of those types of matches, but that match was just magical. I mean, there's just the crowd and the energy and the characters and whatever. And so in literally the course of one match, I went from teasing them about being wrestling fans to going, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And so then I was hooked. I started, drinking it up like a thirsty dog at a water bowl, right? I was WWF, WCW, ECW, local indies. I was going to watch the LWF in South suburban Chicago, seeing a very young CM Punk in, the gym at our local high school. And I was off to the races. And then even as some of my buddies fell away from wrestling, I just got more and more and more into it. And so I actually wrote my thesis in college in my American Studies major about how wrestling mirrors popular culture from World War II to the present. So I just went crazy nuts about it and never looked back.
You talked about the indies. One of the things I want to point out to people, if they're not already going to check out Warrior Wrestling on their own, but one thing that is great, if I'm not sure about independent wrestling, I can go to a Warrior Wrestling or watch a Warrior Wrestling show, and I am going to get the best of all the worlds. I'm going to get Lucha. I'm going to get the big names that I know. I'm also going to get now a guy like Sam Adonis, not known very well, but you watch his work. Him and Pillman, I believe, at the last show, outstanding in that main event. There's a lot of names, so I can get that indie feel. And where else can I go if I don't go to a Warrior Wrestling show where I'm this close to big stars? You had a fan fest. Fans can go up and meet Tessa Blanchard, meet Brian Pillman Jr. One of the guys who you have both shows, Nuclear Heat, Frank the Clown. I love to watch Frank the Clown work with the crowd and really make him angry. He does such a great job with his mouth, but it's an entertaining product from top to bottom. And like I said, not the best of both worlds. It's the best of a lot of worlds. What are some of the things that you guys might have in plans just in case this pandemic keeps us from going to live wrestling even longer than we want to? Are there any besides, how can I get a hold of Watch Warrior Wrestling? Is there anything Warrior Wrestling's planning on doing to bridge that gap?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So we've kicked around a lot of ideas, and we don't have one specific idea yet, but we had talked actually in the past about doing almost like an in-depth YouTube show or something about individual matches from past Warrior shows, where Eric and I would sit down, or other members of our backstage crew would sit down, and we'd tell the story of how, match X came together, right? So how did the original War of Attrition match come together? What was the idea? Without, pulling the curtain back too much, what was the lead up to it? What was our thinking in booking the match? And then show the match itself. So we thought we could do that about a lot of key matches and create content that might not be, the match isn't new. If you're a Warrior fan, you've seen the match, but maybe you haven't seen it from the perspective of the people who helped put it together. So that's something that we kicked around or talked about. I would love to be able to get to a place where we could do some type of empty arena, something somewhere. Matt Nix from Freelance Wrestling was working really hard on putting together a show at the Freelance Wrestling Academy and at Pro Wrestling Tees. Ultimately, though, because of our restrictions here in Chicago, he was not able to pull it off, but that was a great idea. Kudos to him. If we're not able to get back together in the foreseeable future for a real show with real fans, I think we will try to continue to just put out analyzing or analytical content on YouTube, like I said, and then just kind of wait. We also don't want to, and this is an internal discussion we've had, we don't want to overly try to put too much stuff out there and really kind of water it down. Like we really pride ourselves that we do 4 shows a year, and each of those shows we want it to be like the WrestleMania of indie wrestling. So we want to make sure that for us it might even be better to hang back a little bit and then come back with that big festival of wrestling when we're able to.
Very good. I like the ideas. Like I said, the Aries Shelley match is one I would love to hear. And the War of Attrition is something that I've never seen before. It's very unique. It could have been done before, and I just might not have been aware of it, but it was a unique concept. And when I went to Warrior Wrestling, what was the last one? 8?
8, yeah.
8. Done well on the women's side and the men's side. Was a great attraction. So where as we wrap up here, where can I as a fan, how can I catch up with Warrior Wrestling on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and we'll flash these all about on the video here, but how can I watch? How can I get more involved as a fan?
Sure. So the website is warriorwrestling.net. The Twitter is at Warrior Wrestling. No vowels in wrestling, though. So WRSTLNG, Warrior, no vowels wrestling. Same thing on Instagram. We're on Facebook as well. And we post everything. Twitter's probably our primary mode of communication, but we post everything on all the mediums. Website's updated with videos and photos of past shows. You can go through all of our past advertising, link to watch all the shows on High Spots. We've actually released a variety of our greatest matches free online and on YouTube, and many of them are posted on our website as well. So if you go to warriorwrestling.net, go to the video section, they're there, or go to our YouTube, you can see the original War of Attrition. You can see the Lucha Brothers versus Team White Wolf, A-Kid and Carlos Romo. You can see the Templario Soberano match that opened up Warrior 6, and a lot of people felt stole the show. There's just some really, really good action that we've already put out there. High Spots has also shared what a lot of people consider our marquee match thus far in our young life, which is the 6-man with Will Ospreay, Rocky Romero, and Amazing Red versus the Rascals from Warrior 7, the show you referenced in December. Just incredible action, and that was a dream come true night for all of us behind the scenes to have that collection of guys in a match together. And so if you've not watched it yet, if you're a wrestling fan, go on YouTube. It's free. Will Ospreay, Rocky Romero, and Amazing Red Chaos versus the Rascals. It was a match that you talk about sellouts at the curtain or sellouts at the monitor backstage in wrestling shows. The entire locker room came through the curtain and just sat in the gym, in the arena, to watch that match. Brian Cage, our world champion, was sitting on the stage in his trunks eating pizza, watching the match, because literally no one wanted to miss it. So that is where I would start. If you're a fan and you want to get into Warrior Wrestling, look for Ospreay, Romero, and Red versus the Rascals on YouTube. We
will try to set up a link right here on this interview, so as we air
Perfect.
People can get on there. Steve, it is a pleasure. Now we've worked together, but we actually never got a chance to meet in person because Day of a Wrestling Show. I understand you're busy. I was busy, and for whatever reason, we didn't get a chance. But at Wrestling Travel, we were very proud to sponsor, do our little part in helping out, and we are definitely looking forward to getting involved with Warrior Wrestling more and doing our part. So I thank you very much. Stay safe. And I'm speaking for everybody, cannot wait for wrestling in general, but I cannot wait for the next Warrior Wrestling 9 or whatever it might be called when you come out, this big return. So I thank you very much, Steve.
Justin, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks for all that you guys do, and ditto. I mean, I'm tapping my feet on the floor every day waiting for when can we jump in and plan a wrestling show, and we are going to do the best damn show we possibly can when we're able.
And we're going to be there. All righty. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.